Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the fourth and final session of the Open Enrollment Summit here at Move Health. If you've made it to all four sessions, make certain to put your name in the chat. If you've made it to all four sessions, we will stamp your passport at the end of this and maybe send you a little something if you've been all four sessions live. Would love to hear that. I'm going to copy my co-founder Drew and say, if you're in the chat there, let us know where you're located at. Would love to connect. David, you've been in all four sessions. Incredible. 500 points to you. You'll learn shortly after. Josie, our Director of Marketing and Community, she's going to let us all know how we can redeem those points at the end here. And so good to see you all in here. Leslie, aloha, Honolulu, Hawaii. That's awesome. But we have a star-studded guest panel here talking specifically about how to fit open enrollment and healthcare planning into your service calendar. And so you can see we've got Cliff with BLBB, Jennifer with Capsouth, and Judd with Modera. And so before we get into introductions, I'm just going to give a quick intro to myself. My name is Craven. I'm here in Evansville, Indiana. I'm one of the co-founders and the head of growth here at Move Health. And that's just a fancy way of saying that I get to spend all day, every day with forward-thinking advisors talking about Move Health, talking about how it can make an impact, and helping to do a lot of the things that Cliff, Jennifer, and Judd have already done, which is proactively making this a part of your service calendar when you're working with clients. Now, all of that to be said, we've had a ton of great informational sessions, everything from why should you care about healthcare planning to, some CFP CE credits for both Affordable Care Act Marketplace open enrollment and why it matters, as well as Medicare annual enrollment period and why that matters. Hopefully you're ready to use the open enrollment season as a planning opportunity with your clients, but how do you actually do that, right? Well, that's what Jennifer, Judd, and Cliff are here for to help us out. And I think one thing that's important is, Move Health, we are a fintech that advisors utilize. It's one thing for us to talk about how you should plug it in. It's a totally different game to have advisors that are in the field serving clients to talk about that. And so let's get into some introductions here. Jennifer, do you mind kicking us off?
Sure. It's great to be with you guys. I'm Jennifer Fensley. I have multiple hats, and so I am a lead advisor, have clients of my own, but I lead all of our advisory teams here at Capsouth. I'm a part owner of the company, and I was the one that brought Move Health to us. So have been on this journey and know this quite well.
Awesome, Jennifer. Judd, go ahead.
Judd Meinhart, very similar to Jennifer, multiple hats. I'm an advisor and director of financial planning for Modera. Also, we were early adopters, I think, of Caribou prior to Caribou joining Move Health. We're excited to see the evolution.
Yeah, Judd, great to have you. You've got the Phillies flow going on, the playoff flow there, so we're good there. Speaking of the Phillies, Cliff, give us a quick introduction.
All right, I'm the president of BLBB Advisors. I'm also a lead advisor there, very similar to Jennifer and Judd, multiple hats. We also came through the Caribou channel. I did look it up this morning. This is our 6th open enrollment offering these services through either Caribou or Move Health. So we've had a few times to get this wrong and then improve upon it. So we'll talk a little bit about that later today.
I love it. Well, thank you to each of you for being willing to take time out of a busy schedule to join us. But we'll jump right in. Everybody watching is probably somewhat familiar with healthcare planning now, and the importance of open enrollment as a planning opportunity, right? We talk about this often at Move Health, that this is many times a multi-$1,000 a year cash flow decision that is really important that an advisor who's acting in a fiduciary capacity and is doing holistic planning is a part of, and it's really also an opportunity to set yourself apart. Cliff, you've been at this for 6 years now. And so this is an opportunity to set yourself apart and show that, new prospects that you're really doing a deep dive on planning. But how do advisors actionably work open enrollment, healthcare planning into, their service calendars? And so you have tax season. That makes sense. In the spring, you guys know what you're doing. All three of you wearing multiple hats. You put on your tax hat for a short period of time, which is an ultra complex topic. And you're walking through this, and there's the 15th, which you have to get a lot of things done by. But if you're new to open enrollment and new to healthcare planning, many people on this call might not be familiar with how to actually offer it during the open enrollment period. And second to that, how to let current potential clients, as well as your current clients, that this is something that you do and something that you make available to them, because we talk about it all the time at Move Health. This is something that forward-thinking advisors are doing. And so it's oftentimes people go, my financial advisor is going to help me with my health insurance and my Medicare, right? And so it's a big differentiator. And so we're going to answer both those questions and more during the session. Cliff, I would love to kick things off, on your side of things. Can you tell us what maybe communication strategies and methods you've used to let current and potential clients know that you offer open enrollment guidance, and how it kind of slots into financial planning?
So the good news about open enrollment is it's kind of like taxes. There's a date on the calendar. You know when it's coming. It's not quite as obvious to most of us as the tax date. April 15th is burned into most of our brains, but open enrollment is a very predictable thing. So the trick is to get the firm's engine to be realizing that that's an important date. So start planning early.
Yep.
Move is great about being willing to do client seminars with you. So we use a webinar format that we've used in a number of years, and we get that. Typically, we're doing a June 30 client statement, client newsletter, client update. We want to try and get something in there to remind clients that this is coming, remind them that we offer these services. And then by that point in time, we're starting to gear up to have a conversation with Move about getting a client webinar date on the calendar before open enrollment gets started. We're pushing that advertising out to our client base, and letting everybody know we've got that webinar, because the webinar is a great way to hit a bunch of people at once. It's much easier than trying to call every one of your clients over 65. Other thing is, you can record the webinar and just, if someone's interested, send them a link to it, right? So it's a much more scale intensive way of doing this, and we found that that's pretty effective. But you know what? Despite all those efforts, we still have more clients than should be that are surprised that their financial advisor can help them in this. Now, when they find out, they're pleasantly surprised, but no matter how much you try to do this at scale, you still have to be getting out there with the message one-on-one in those planning meetings, one-on-one in those prospect meetings.
Yep, that's great. I think that's so important that you have it in the one-to-one. You have that 1-2 punch of either having the webinar that they can join live, and then obviously having that recording on demand is a huge win, to just be able to say, hey, we talked about this in your prep meeting or what have you. Here's a link to a video. Check this out. Let us know if you want an introduction. This makes sense for some help with that. Judd, anything from the Modera side of things that's worked for you all?
Yeah, I think very similar. We take a multifaceted approach to this, where we're leveraging our marketing department through newsletters, through client webinars, to make those broad announcements, to educate clients of, hey, this is a service that we do offer. Because like you said, it's not something traditional that clients think about as financial advisors offering, even though it is a really, like you said, it's $1,000 decision, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
But then we're also pushing it in front of advisors as well too, and encouraging them to have those conversations on a one-to-one basis, or even providing kind of that form email that they can send out to clients as part of, hey, during your fall meeting, wanted to know if you wanted any help with open enrollment guidance. We do offer this service, partner with a third party. So it has to be that broad base, but also on that individual level to build that trust, and show that you're a proactive, forward-thinking advisor.
For sure. I think that's important. One note about Move Health is, our Learn Center, we actually include the verbiage for those open enrollment emails, right? So even if the marketing team's saying, what should we say? We give you at least the starting point to put the Modera spin on it if you'd like. So all good there. Jennifer, anything you'd like to chime in with as far as, strategies you've used to communicate?
Yeah, I'd like to echo. We're very similar. So I love that we're all kind of doing similar things. I maybe need to take a page out of Cliff's book and start a little bit earlier. Some of our clients are probably more procrastinators. So we try to do that a little bit closer. And I think our biggest shift is we really used to think about open enrollment mainly as Medicare, but now we see so many different type of clients who have retired earlier,
Yeah.
clients who honestly, they can get better healthcare coverage in the marketplace than they could through their work. And so we've broadened our experience there. So that's one of the things I just really wanted to mention to everybody is like, we now have 2 open enrollment periods. We're really paying attention to when it's the healthcare.gov open enrollment season, as well as Medicare. And it is a conversation that when you become a client of ours, we want to have like upfront, and it's continuous reminders. And we'll talk a little bit later today, just some of the techniques that we're using within our practice to do those practices. But I think Webinars have been great. We get a lot of questions from those, and it is the consistent email. And there's one phrase that we like to say is you marry your Medicare plan and you date your drug plan, and getting clients to understand like every year you need to be shopping your drug plan. That
Yeah.
has been really successful for us.
Good. Yeah, I think there is certainly a preconceived notion that many times it's, oh, my financial advisor, they can help me with my Medicare, right? But there's this whole subset, 40 million people. If you've been a part of the sessions today, there's 40 million Americans between 55 and 64 that would love to quit their jobs, retire early before 65. And you think about, we even have the de facto, retirement age of 65. Why? Because you get health coverage, right? And so there's a lot of times where you can reach out to prospects or even current clients that maybe haven't been considering early retirement, but this is something where you can use it to talk to them about that, open the conversation. What we find often, even our name, Move Health, what we find often is that this is like the linchpin in a financial plan for them to be able to say, I need to figure out health coverage before I can jump. So all good things. One quick reminder for you all, if you've got questions for any of the panelists or myself, feel free to put those into the webinar chat there. David said, love you marry your Medicare plan, but date your Part D. That's a good one. So I don't think we coined that, but it is anybody coined it, but it's a good saying to remember. So they're all great, right? So I think now let's shift gears quickly to a common pain point that we hear from advisors. And Jennifer, you had spoken to this just briefly. How do I know which clients to reach out to? How do I segment my client list? How do I know which households to touch base with? Do you have any tips or insights about how advisors may be able to use their CRM to identify which clients and prospects to reach out to during open enrollment?
For sure. I'll focus a little bit on Medicare, and then I'm happy to answer other questions if I need to,
Sure.
but feel like we probably have shared experiences. Medicare is really easy. It's age-based. And so that is one of the things we call it a milestone report. There's multiple ways to do it. All these different technologies, we have access to it. We choose to do it through our CRM system. We can easily run a report on any prospects that we've ever encountered, anybody that's in our system that is a current client. And we run that report very early in the year just to say who's going to be of Medicare age. And then we hit it again very close to like who is now enrolled in Medicare, who we need to be targeting for open enrollment. And so it's super easy when it's age-based. And we just want to consistently remind them of, hey, it doesn't matter if you chose a Medicare Advantage. Like, let's talk about it. Are you happy? What's going on? I think sometimes clients just feel like, oh, I made this decision and I'm stuck. And so we really like to, whether it's in their meetings or just through shared materials, and we primarily do this through targeted emails to clients and in our newsletters. We just find that to be the most effective on top of just the regular conversations around it. But leveraging that CRM, critical. Everybody's got your birth date in the system, so leverage it.
Yeah, I mean, leverage birth dates. I think that's critical on the Medicare side. And all of this is going back to the fact of, hey, we care about you outside of just your investments. Long gone are the days of just the investment advisor, who's a great relationship manager and all those things. And now we're in this phase where clients really expect these healthcare planning pieces, or it's a real delight to them to know, hey, I'm not touching base with you about your investment performance. We're going to talk about something that actually impacts you and you're worried about and keeps you up at night. And investment performance can do that as well. I'm not downplaying that, but this is one of those pieces where you can add value outside of that. So, Cliff, anything from your perspective? You were nodding and going, okay, milestone 65, that's an easy one. I might stump you here on pre-65. Is there anything that you're using that has worked to identify, pre-65, clients that might need help with marketplace open enrollment, or how you're reaching out to them?
Two thoughts on that. But before I go there, on this milestone birthday, most of us on this call probably haven't turned 65 yet, right? So we've never been through the I'm turning 65. What's this like? What we have found after 6 years of doing this is that the people that are turning 65 are getting absolutely inundated in their email boxes, their mailboxes, their phone calls. There's lots of people out there trying to sell them a plan, not necessarily the best plan for them, just a plan. So what we've done with our CRM around the milestone 65 birthday is 3 months before a client turns 65, their lead advisor gets a task assigned to them in the CRM system. In the body of that task is a pre-written email to the client that includes the client's preferred name and says, hey, you've got a big birthday coming up in 3 months. First of all, happy birthday. Secondly, you're about to get slammed with Medicare enrollment information. Let us help you process that, right? So all the lead advisor has to do is they can write their own email, they can copy and paste the email, hit send, it's on its way. So we try to make it super easy around the milestone birthdays. But to your point, the non-milestone birthday ones, the ones that are pre-Medicare, that's a whole nother creature entirely. And we've come up with a couple of tricks that help us with that. One, we try really hard to be a positive influence in the lives of the young adult children of our clients, right? Because we want to be there and we want to be engaged. One big birthday that's another milestone birthday is that 26th birthday. We're seeing a lot of parents that are carrying their adult children on plans up until 26. It's cheaper than the plan through work. Sometimes it's not cheaper, it's just easier. And this 26 has become a really big birthday in the health world. So proactive outreach before the 26th birthday, both to the parents and the kid, is a great way to score some bonus points with mom and dad, show them that you really know about and care about the family, and can generally add some real value to those younger kids who might either be going through the open enrollment at work with a qualifying event or otherwise, or who are simply moving over to the marketplace plans. The other thing we figured out is that we do a lot of tax planning with some well-known fintech planning software, and our financial planning team is looking at those tax returns for a lot of people. If you're on a marketplace plan, you're getting a 1095-A, whether or not you're getting a tax credit. And that 1095-A is getting turned into Form 8962 in the tax return if there's anything going on with the marketplace plan. So that's an easy red flag for the financial planning team when they're looking at tax returns to say, oh, have you thought about spending some time trying to optimize this marketplace plan in that pre-65 space?
That's great, Cliff. I think what a huge unlock, and it takes a little bit of sleuthing, right? When you're diving into different pieces, people aren't really thinking about healthcare planning at tax time often, but when you see that 1095-A, you go, whoa, wait a second, this person has been on marketplace coverage last year. This likely means that they might be as well this year. Another one that we see often that advisors will utilize is someone that you usually have a trigger. Is this person still working, right? Do you have a label in your CRM? Is this person retired or not? That's a good one to just reach out to every year and say, what are you doing for your health coverage? We want to touch base. We have a resource for that. And during the open enrollment period, here's what you can do. So all this to be said, it sounds like you've got organized lists and filters in your CRM. Those are huge for effective communication, hitting the milestones, sleuthing out people that have been on marketplace, looking at age 26 for folks that are aging off of a parent's plan, things along those lines. That it's a great way to gather information about your clients and discern what needs they have, right? So moving forward, Judd, can you share how advisors, even without a CRM or specifically tracking certain demographic data, how they can be aware of what they're hearing in client meetings, right? What are some of those things that make your ears perk up, or that you're talking with the financial planning team? Here's where your ears should perk up, on making notes of how to talk to clients during open enrollment.
Yeah, such a good question. And I think it really goes back to, I think we all know as advisors, like our most valuable time is sitting in front of clients, right? And probably when we are there, our most valuable assets are the ears. Right. And listening for those cues. And if you know what to listen for, you should just have red flags just jumping up in your head, say, oh, healthcare conversation, right? Things like a pending retirement, especially if it's a pre-65, job loss, even like life events like moving to a different zip code, right? Could trigger some sort of healthcare conversations. Again, the kids aging, 26, Cliff, that's a really, really good one. Even when Cobra expires for a client, right? Like you can have multiple transitions or multiple opportunities to have that conversation in a single year. And I mean, we're all planners, right? Like we want to know, and you can plan that next meeting cadence out for the next 18 months, even as far as just around here's the milestones that we need to navigate and help you through with healthcare. But just training your ears and knowing what those trigger points are, and knowing that, hey, I hear you're going to retire soon. We need to start talking about healthcare. We need to evaluate your COBRA plan or an ACA plan and figure out what's the next best steps for you.
Yeah,
Judd, Cole, if you don't mind me jumping in here, because what
Please.
Bud just said about Cobra, I think is critically important. Life transitions. It's not only if you've had a job termination, but also divorce. I mean, this is one that we've come in contact probably twice in the last 2 weeks of new clients going through divorce, trying to navigate. And the peace of mind when I say we're going to help you navigate that because they've already tried to look at Cobra information, or they hear about healthcare.gov, and one recent new client said, I sat down for hours and tried to go through this. I said, don't worry about it, we're going to help you. And she's like, are you being serious? I was like, absolutely. And just the sense of peace, the sense of ease. So if you're paying attention to all those key things in those meetings and making it really a part of your team's just culture and dynamic, like healthcare can touch so many pieces of this.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that is spot on, right? How do you impress upon new people? Hey, this is an important decision. And I think, this is not Move Health surveys, but, if you look at retirement or life change surveys, what are some of the biggest concerns that people have? Do I have enough money? How am I going to make that money last? And healthcare, right? Usually it's in the top three pretty regularly, Jennifer. So it's a great call out. And Judd, loved what you had to say about, the most important tools that we have are our two ears. We could talk the entire meeting and it would be a loss. The idea is for us to be listening as advisors and be hearing some of those things. And our job is to note those life events or those opportunities for planning. Jennifer, something that might be actually kind of unique, that you may be able to talk about is the sandwich generation, right? You have this entire generation of people that are now caring for aging parents, but maybe still caring for children. And so, you might have someone who needs to help a parent with Medicare and help their 26-year-old. And so maybe speak to that generation and maybe how, this allows you to, prospect to a wider group without having to do marketing, right? Just by telling them you care, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that is a tremendous amount of my client base. And some of their first major events with healthcare is watching their parents navigate the system or having long-term care issues they don't really know how to answer. And honestly, they will naturally bring that conversation up. And I've seen the sense of fear about how they even navigate Medicare, even if they're 20 years away from it, because they're like, oh, my parents said it was so hard. But I think it has really injected this sense of conversation around Medicare is just not an event. It is a lifetime discussion of medical decisions. And so we love being able to offer that even if their parent's not a client, is there some things we can help navigate there? Sometimes they're going to be at different places of their journey. But if you generally ask, like, how are your parents doing? What's going on in their life? We're very fortunate to have great relationships with clients. I feel like probably people listening to this webinar are kind of headed down that same path where you're more relational and you want to journey with clients. So when you're having those conversations, they're concerned about how are their parents going to navigate long-term care. As soon as you hear long-term care, you need to be asking, like, how are they doing with Medicare? What does this look like? What kind of drugs are they on? Do you guys shop those? Do you want our help with that? And then it's like, again, it's the same reaction that we had with the divorcee, where she's just like, oh, you can help with that? Because they haven't come into that life event. I love that Cliff is talking about age 26, because that is becoming more of a thing. But then the other thing it leads us to a discussion with early, Cole, is yes, and you're probably thinking about age 65 because of Medicare, but what if you could retire earlier because we could help you navigate that healthcare decision? That starts to take the conversation with those clients in an entirely different direction. And honestly, we came to Caribou/Move Health because of a client who retired early, and we're going to need to navigate that space. And we just saw more and more of it. So they're facing unique challenges. I feel like that's where I am at life with young adults, I like to call them, and not kids anymore, and aging parents.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, your job as an advisor, your job as a financial planner is to be a center of influence and to kind of not be the Swiss Army knife that can do all things, but to have an answer to know, someone or something in enough spaces to make certain you're pointing someone in the right direction. I think it also goes back to, something that we hold close to what we do at Move Health, which is just seek to add value in every relationship you have, leave it better than you found it, right? And so knowing that you all do that, is an opportunity. Plus, Jennifer, as you alluded to, being able to start that, potentially start that early retirement conversation with a client and, hey, what would it look like for you to have more time with grandkids? Or what would it look like to have more time with your aging parents, right? Not necessarily in the caretaking capacity, but just more time, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of times I had an advisor tell me, he said, the clients that I work with could always go make more money, right? One of the things that they can't make more of is time. And so how can I give that back to them?
And Cole,
So
I think it's important, like, if you're on this call and have not delved into this space, it can seem very intimidating. But I think that's where we wanted to partner with somebody where we didn't have to be the experts. We as the advisors can know the key time frames, know the key points, but now we have a solid partner where we can jump on a call with the client and listen and help navigate those conversations. But we might be able to help guide the conversation or help the client ask the right questions, but we don't have to be the experts. And that's taken a tremendous amount of burden, because if you haven't spent hours in healthcare.gov like I have, you may not realize how overwhelming it can be. And that is just a huge relief of time and peace of mind that I don't have to be that expert.
yeah, I'm, like I said, I spend all day, every day with advisors, and I often reference us as the easy button for health insurance and Medicare,
sure.
right? And a lot of times an advisor goes, "Oh, I don't need to be the expert." I had another advisor I met with recently who told me that he spent 14 hours figuring out his Medicare. He took notes and he said, "I'm going to meet with you guys. This looks great, but I'm going to try to do it myself and use this as a use case. See if you all save me time, right?" And so 14 hours that he spent looking into this, dialing in and all these things. And within, 2 meetings with our team that I think encompassed a total of, less than 90 minutes, he had the right plan in place, and it was a different outcome than what he had come to. And we had pointed out some of those red flags or things that make our ears perk up as healthcare planning team members. So all really, really good stuff there, Jennifer. Thanks for sharing that. And so, unless you are keeping, very detailed notes, have those milestone pieces in place through your CRM, it can be hard to know every single life event, right? We can't be with our clients every single minute of the day and can't be hearing all those things, though we try to. And of course, prospects, you don't really know their situation when they walk through your proverbial door until you're meeting with them. So that's where, public facing, general marketing tactics come in, and so Cliff at BLBB, maybe you can talk me through, educational materials for current clients or prospects, and how are you crafting the marketing message to get someone to go, oh, the light bulb's going off. That applies to me. Let me reach out to BLBB or let me reach out to my advisor, versus you having to go hunt them down.
Not as well as we could. Right. I mean, I think we could probably all run a marketing summit tomorrow and we would probably get just as many attendees, right? We're working hard on trying to get better at that. We are doing some targeted Google AdWords campaigns for the first time in our history. I realize everyone's like, well, that's been around for 30 years. Well, give me a break. I've been around 61 in this business here at BLBB, and we're working on it. So we're trying to get more targeted around that. I think that there's a huge opportunity to run targeted paid outreach before and during open enrollment, and then maybe at the last week of open enrollment where all the procrastinators come back around, right? I definitely think that, hey, did you know your financial advisor can help you with this? Is probably a powerful hook in there. We do, as I mentioned, go with our quarterly and our monthly pieces that we're sending out to clients. We do a lot of writing in-house. We try to have at least a couple a year that are on healthcare. In the past, Caribou and Move have been more than happy to help us ghostwrite them or help us pull content together. Plus, there's a great amount of information in the Learning Center that's right there for us. We have done webinars. I mentioned that earlier. We will continue to do that. The recordings of those webinars can live in the news and information section on our website, so a client or prospect can hit on that if they want to. And we also do some LinkedIn content around this. We try to have active LinkedIn profiles for all of our lead advisors and try to make that a part of it as well. I will say though that with the prospecting piece, it's that one-on-one. It's part of the service offering that we talk about when new prospects come in. I met with a lovely couple this morning, both in their early 80s. They wanted to talk about investing and a liquidity event that's coming up, and I asked a question about healthcare, and we went off in a whole nother direction that really deepened and made the conversation a lot richer. I also want to comment on that sandwich generation that Jennifer was talking about.
Yeah.
we've got a lot of executives and entrepreneurs who are in their late 50s, early 60s. They are at the peak of their careers. They're at peak complexity. They're worried about succession. They're worried about liquidity in their business. They're worried about their kids. And mom and dad are in their 80s or 90s. And maybe they're in a continuing care community. Maybe they're living independently. But more and more, the son or daughter is getting leaned on. And there's a guilt issue there. And the last thing that the son or daughter is doing is looking at the drug plan. Or they're just hoping that mom and dad sign up, right? And when we go to them, we say, we can help your parents with this decision. The look, Jennifer's talked about it, but that look of relief that you get. And by the way, you pick up a whole nother generation as clients having that conversation. So that it is incredibly powerful, and it's incredibly valuable to the client that they can unload some of that guilt and know that someone's finally going to look at their aging parents' situation around health and drug.
Whoa. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it, right? So we could drop the mic there and just talk about, how important it could be, from that perspective. And a lot of that just starts with visibility, right? And so Judd, maybe you can give us some personal experience, right? Around COVID, you started spinning up some finfluencer content, right? And so maybe talk us through that and what that looks like, and how that's kind of spurred conversations with other clients or prospects.
Yeah. Like many of us in the business, during COVID, I was trapped in my room, spare bedroom at the time, which is my new office, and stuck on the phone with clients all day. And I would just remember ending the days like tired and exhausted, and trying to figure out, like, I have two young kids, trying to figure out what was next, what was going on. And all those conversations really stuck with me because I knew there were thousands of other people out there who needed some kind of advice, but weren't going to be able to get it. So, content was kind of my outlet during that time. It's kind of a stress relief and my way to add and help. And it just turned into my primary marketing channel, I'll say. It became a way to scale a message. And I've really found over time that, like, just case studies just really resonate with people. And my core, ideal client persona, if you will, is that high earner executive. And a lot of times, one of the pain points they have is, what about healthcare when I step away from work? And we know the numbers when you think about it, like, they're going to continue working for what, maybe $1,000, $2,000 a month expense that is just a rounding error on what their portfolio is. But when you can unlock that for them and share stories of how you've walked clients through the process and allow them to connect those dots, that's what really resonates with people, I think. Like, yes, we want to shout it from the rooftops, like, we can help you with healthcare. But what they have to be able to see, that prospect out there that's reading your content has to be able to put themselves in your client's shoes and say, wow, they're like me, and this person can help me. And that's really, what I think really creates that opportunity, especially through content.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I'll make a plug for Judd's LinkedIn. If you don't follow it, he has a good publication that he drops. What is it? Is it weekly or is it monthly that you drop that, Judd?
I do. I'm a daily poster, and then I have a weekly newsletter.
That's right. It's the weekly newsletter. It's a good follow. So we're gonna jump over here and talk about the bigger piece here is how do we action on this, right? So maybe we can talk about how advisors can actually work these strategies and tips into their workflow, right? So, Judd, when does Modera start thinking about open enrollment planning as an opportunity? When do advisors start reaching out to current clients, and what resources do you equip advisors with to have these conversations? Are you splitting up responsibilities, outreach, or certain steps within the workflow? How do you make sure clients take action? So this is the time for us to, this question here is really just, let's get super actionable. How do we actually put this into play?
Yeah. I mean, we're already thinking about it. I thought we were ahead of the curve, but Cliff starts in June, so I mean, he's got us all beat there. We've actually got a webinar coming up, I think next week, already, to kind of kick off open enrollment season. Especially for advisors, you have to put it in front of advisors. Like, Modera has 80 some advisors, another team of planners. So we want to make sure we're continually reinforcing, that message across the firm, especially as advisors head into these fall meetings, which a lot of time might be year-end tax planning, I'm sure a lot of people love to talk about the Fed rate cut today, but we want to make sure that we're touching on all those important parts of the plan for clients. So, absolutely, just getting the messaging out, leveraging support. If you work in an office where you do have a team environment, having that second chair there who can kind of be the behind the scene pulling the strings, getting the invite out to the client for their health plan analysis has always been super helpful for us. But allows the client or allows the advisor to really be the focus on the advisor and not in front of the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Cliff, Jennifer, either of you kind of want to chime in on what actioning on that looks like? We've talked about it, but is there anything very, very specific to, what you guys are doing as far as either timeline or the tech you're using?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to just tell everybody is that this can seem very overwhelming if you hear us talking about all these things that we're doing. But I can say for us, we didn't start that way. We started small. And so it's a great way, open enrollment, low barrier to entry. Look at your clients. Are they closer to 65? Are they more going to be needing ACA coverage in the healthcare.gov system? Choose one. Like you don't have to swing for the fences. And if you're just getting started, it could probably seem overwhelming, like you only have a short period of time to do this. But you still have plenty of time. And I would say just maybe it's Medicare open enrollment this season. And you start with Move Health, you say, let's go all in on Medicare open enrollment. And all you do is send a couple of emails. That's going to jumpstart you. And then you can start layering in these other things. You can build these milestone reports. You can start earlier. And your conversations, whether you have if you're a solo or if you have a huge team, it's going to be the same thing. You just continue to add in and get the advisory team more and more comfortable so that it is just becoming part of your culture. And so I just like to throw that out there because if we're talking about all this stuff, it can seem like we have it all together and we've had it together from day one. And maybe Cliff and Judd did, but like we certainly did not. So
I love it. Go ahead, Cliff.
I'll say the same. We started out because we needed a way to respond to inbound client requests that had serious problems in this space. We have clients in almost all 50 states, and look, maybe I can learn the plans in the Philadelphia submarket, right? But I can't learn what's available in Arizona or California or wherever the client might be calling from. And we needed a simple solution for the unusual inbound client case. And we got to know the team that way. We were really impressed with what they did. We started to use it more. The problem is you start using it a little bit and you realize how powerful this is to clients, and you realize how bad the client decision making is around this. When you really start to see how people are making these decisions on their own, it's frightening. And then you realize that, okay, if I'm really going to do my job in this client's life, I need to proactively reach out to clients. So you kind of build on it as you get more and more comfortable with you don't have to be the expert. The questions aren't that scary because there is an expert to answer the question. And all of a sudden, hey, this is really important. I need to talk to more clients about this in order to feel like I'm doing my job. That's kind of how it builds on itself in a good way. You've heard a lot about CRM tagging, data quality. To be proactive about this, data quality is important. You need to think about how you're going to monitor these kinds of life events. I see something in the chat about monitoring drugs or conditions. I don't know anything about my clients' drugs or my clients' conditions, and I don't want to know about it. That's Move Health's job. We're not collecting any health information on clients. We're not worried about HIPAA information. We stay completely clear of that. If they have a question about formulary, they're going to Move with that. We're not preserving any of that information. Frequent flyer outreach, we at this point, having done this 6 times, we know which clients are going to be coming back to us. We know which ones, if we ask them, they'll be like, oh yeah, I want to do that, sign me up. So keeping track of the frequent flyers, we have a tag in our CM of who's used Move in the past, though Move makes that pretty easy to track. And then of course, we again have found that you need to keep bringing it up. It's not enough to send out one email to your client base and say, hey, we do this. No, but I'm sorry, nobody's listening. They have stuff going on in their own life. They don't hear you say this until they've got an issue in their life that this is relevant to. So you do have to keep driving the message home in situations where there's that green light moment to talk about it.
Absolutely, Cliff. I think you hit the nail on the head there, and you reminded me of something that I hear often, which is this becomes something that becomes really sticky, and then once you've kind of identified and gotten into the mind process of how someone who doesn't have guidance on this from an expert is making the decision around healthcare planning, you go, uh-oh, I can't let this sit, right? I've got to start, reaching out and doing this because it is, we see it all the time, right? Where there's, someone who's like, they think they've got it all together and they've got it dialed in, like that, advisor that said, I spent 14 hours on this and I dialed in, I've got exactly what I need. And within 20 minutes, our team was saying, hey, maybe not, respectfully, this is probably the right path, right? And so important to have someone who's in this all day, every day. One of the things we say is the only thing that stays the same in health insurance and Medicare is change, right? It's the only thing that stays the same. So as we kind of wrap up, before we do any Q&A here, feel free to fire those questions into the chat, and we'll get ourselves wrapped up here in just a moment. Any final words of wisdom? Jennifer, we can start with you, and then we can kind of go around the horn.
I really do think that this is just a transformational error. I mean, similar to Cliff, we came to Move Health because we were getting so many questions around this. Healthcare planning is going to be one of the number one things that we're going to be faced with as the systems get more complicated, they keep changing, and then more and more people are going to want to retire before age 65. So if you haven't started, this is the prime time to start. It's never too late. And even if you miss open enrollment season this year, just critically important to be considering this as a large area of planning. Most of us use planning software. They're going to put it in as a goal. You can go so far beyond that and make a meaningful difference to your clients.
That's right. Judd?
Yeah, I'm just such a big fan of like the jobs to be done framework, right? Like clients are hiring us for the functional jobs that they need to be done, but also the emotional. And like I can't think of a bigger one than like retirement, right? You think about all the jobs that we have to do for a client around retirement and being able to do healthcare, which is probably one of the most confusing ones, right? I think it's just kind of like icing on the cake. Like, I mean, it's truly comprehensive planning at that point.
Yeah, I think it's confusing for both the advisor and the client, right? So it's one of those situations where, Cliff, you touched on it of, I don't want to be involved in my client's drug formulary, exceptions and prior authorizations and things along those lines. I want to hand that off to somebody who's in it all day long. And so, Cliff, maybe final words of wisdom here, and then we can, I've got one question in the chat there that we'll get answered, and then we can wrap up.
We had a client who was on the cusp of retirement, and we'd done all the planning. We had the financial plan worked out. It wasn't a 99 plan score, maybe it was a 79, but it was going to work. And we had Move come in and take a look, just on a whim. We were early in the process. We had Move come in and take a look at the situation, and it turned out the client was on an MS drug that her work covered, but that on Medicare was going to be almost $30,000 a year. That did not work in the financial plan. We never would have known that. The client never would have known that. And we ended up working with the client and her neurologist, and the neurologist is like, you know what? You really don't need to be on this drug anymore. You can stop. Right. So, I mean, like, wow. That's an example of the kind of thing that goes on with these conversations. If you want deeper, stronger relationships with your clients and their parents and their young adult children, and you don't want to have to become an expert on something else, this is a fantastic way to do it. And we have found that play out consistently over the last 6 years.
Well, 6 years in, still finding a lot of value in it. Jennifer, Cliff, Judd, thanks for joining. I did want to go into here, a couple of questions. One of them that was out there, and we can take just maybe 2 or 3 of these, and then we'll wrap up here. But whoever wants to take this, do you as advisors join the client in a meeting with Move Health?
I do. I certainly always ask the client, and most of our clients have preferred that we join. And it's a huge benefit to me. Honestly, I learned so much from Move Health when I'm talking to agents and just being like, hearing them explain things to clients. So I think it's made me a stronger advisor in that space, because I've had that journey versus just handing it over. And then sometimes I have the clients that may be a little bit more timid to ask questions. And there's sometimes where they're not really sure. So if I hadn't been involved in that conversation, if we take it offline after they finish with Move, then they're having to translate to me. So I just enjoy being a part of it. It's always pretty quick and painless, and it really has added a lot of value to our relationship. So that's been my personal preference.
That's great. I think that, there's a mixed bag on that, right? We will see, and you all know as the advisor, so Nicole, the person who asked this question, what clients of yours are going to be the ones that you really want to, and they really want you in the meeting. One thing that we do from Move Health's perspective, we're always going to confirm with the client they're okay with their advisor being on the call, right? And if at any point, to Cliff's point of, I don't want to know my client's prescription drugs, et cetera, If there's any point where the client says, hey, I really don't want Cliff on the call, we're going to say, hey, Cliff, sorry, you have to jump. But all good there. And to that point, Al, tracking medications, that's what we do as Move Health. We take that off your plate. So you don't have to do that. We collect those prescription drugs. We're watching, monitoring those. The client has the ability to reach out to us and say, hey, there's a new prescription drug that I was prescribed. Should I be taking that? Is there an alternative? What's the cost going to look like on my drug plan? Is it a $30,000 a year drug, like Cliff mentioned? And so that would be certainly something we provide to the client and to the advisor. So let's see here. So maybe we can kind of wrap up and get close to done here. I'll ask one more question. What's a good opening question that you all ask? Maybe just hit us with a quick one here. A good opening question that you all ask to start a healthcare planning conversation. Cliff.
This one I find this is a great one, particularly with prospects or where you're coming in cold and you've never had the conversation before. If they're already on Medicare, are you and your wife both on the same plan? And most of the time they will say yes. And right away you can say, well, most of the time that's not really the optimal. That's the first clue that there's work to be done here. We probably want to have a deeper conversation with you about this, because the likelihood that you both have the same drug plan and the same doctor plan and the same hospital, it's infinitesimally small. So this is an area where we need to do some more work. It's kind of like the question, how old is your will? Right? It's a great opener and tells you what you need to know pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's great. Judd?
Yeah. Out of curiosity, like, how do you go about selecting your healthcare plan, Medicare plan? Just kind of giving them some sort of open-ended question to answer about their process, about how they go through it. And then, typically following up with that's something that we can help you with if you're interested in having, a second opinion or evaluation on to make sure it's appropriate. But generally it's coming up around a health and family conversation. I had a client actually, ironically, in one meeting was getting hounded by bill collectors from local hospital, and he said, "I'm so sick of this Advantage plan," and it was a pretty good entry right there.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, for sure. Jennifer?
I'm laughing because I don't know that we ask questions or give them the option. We just start talking about it. And we've now, like, if I'm thinking back, it was kind of running through everything in our heads. We just start telling them, hey, when you get to 3 months out, we're going to do this. And so it's built into our client service calendar, and we let them know that it's coming, and they can opt out. But we just say, we just lead with that, and we're prepping them far ahead. And, oh, hey, remember, open enrollment, we're going to go back through Move Health, and you're going to double check your drug plans. So we lead more with guiding them versus asking them questions. But when it comes to the flip side of the younger clients, I really do think is, what if you could retire before age 65, what would that feel like to you if we could make the healthcare issue not a problem for you? That's a big one.
I love it. Well, this has been great. I apologize. We ran longer than I said we would, but I think there's been so much good conversation here, and we could probably go all afternoon, not just speaking Move Health's praise, but talking about how important this is. And then it would transition into how we do this with estate work and how we do this with tax work and all of these things to drive deeper client relationships, create more informed and empowered, consumers of healthcare and building better financial plans. But thank you all, Jennifer, Cliff, Judd, for being, on the panel here. Thank you to everybody that attended. Really appreciate it. We're making the recordings available. We'll upload those to YouTube. We'll send those to you as well. For those of you that made it 4 sessions, really appreciate you all for joining us, and, wishing you all a happy open enrollment season. As always, feel free to reach out to us at Move Health. We're happy to help if you're not already working with us, or if you are, reach out to us. We're happy to help you craft some of these strategies and some of these triggers, milestones along those lines. That's what we exist for. So thanks to our panelists. Thanks to everybody that attended. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great week.
Take care.